Right. Okay. So thanks all for voting in that, and let's get started with today's session. So as you listen into the presentation today, if you have questions, we are going to use something called Slido for questions. I'm going to post a link into the chat now. So if you click on that link, if you have any questions at all, please ask on Slido as we go through. You can ask me on chat if you got stuck, and if you can't figure out Slido, you can put it in the meeting chat. But the reason we use Slido is because it's completely anonymous. So you can ask whatever you like, and it hasn't got your name next to it, and we can get around to answering all of those questions. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Richard Clark, who is our founder here at Secret Sauce, to take on the rest of the presentation. Richard, over to you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along. Just before I start, I just want to explain why I wanted to do this webinar. Basically, when I tell people about Secret Sauce and how we use the science of happiness to improve our teams, people are genuinely curious how we ended up doing this. It's not a normal route for an IT company to follow, to focus on team happiness. So today I want to tell you a little bit about our story. I'm going to share what we've learned, and I'm going to explain why we believe that focusing on team happiness is actually the secret to building a successful company. Okay, hopefully you'll find it interesting. So my fascination started with happiness started in about 1990. This is me in the middle in 1987, first day of secondary school. That's my brother on the left with the smart one, the smart tracksuit on. Anyway, so I was about 15 at the time in 1990. We had a careers guidance counselor come to our school, and he said to me, "What do you think is the most important factor you have to consider when choosing a career?" And I was 15, so I said, "Of course, it's money." And he said, "Let me tell you a story." And he said, "What would you prefer to do? Would you prefer to work in the sewer, okay, wearing one of those full-on chemical protection suits and pick out the things that people shouldn't have put down the toilet, but you get to come to work every single day and go home in a Porsche 911, okay?" And in 1990, the Porsche 911 was the car to have. Or he said, do you want to go to work, do something you really enjoy doing, and go to work in a Vauxhall Astra like I do? And so I was 15. I had no idea what career I wanted to do. But from that point on, I went on this personal mission to find the perfect job, the job that would make me the happiest. And I tried really hard. So first off, I went to Africa when I was 18, and I taught English. Then I taught photography in America. Then I ran a bar in Turkey. That was a good one. Then I actually taught water skiing in Turkey for a whole year. That was a good year. And then I worked in farms and traveled around Australia in a VW camper van. After that, I got a proper job, worked as a project manager. Then I taught IT in a school, started a few companies that didn't really work. Now, the jobs I did, they brought me joy and sort of fleeting happiness, but nothing that really lasted. I was a bit lost. And then in 2014, I read two books. I read Start With Why by Simon Sinek and Let My People Go Surfing, which is the story of the clothing brand Patagonia. And after reading Start With Why, I realized that I didn't have a personal purpose. I didn't have my personal why. And it took me a lot of soul searching, a few weeks of thinking, what is it that gets me out of bed in the morning? And I realized that I really enjoyed helping people, and I really enjoyed making people happy. And Let My People Go Surfing is a really great book if you haven't read it. And it shows you that you can set up a company that has a value as its goal. And you don't have to set it up just to make money. They can be successful if you just believe in your values. So in 2014, Ted and I, we set up Secret Sauce. That's our old logo there. And we had one single goal, and that was to make our team and our clients happy. Now, when I tell people this, the question most people ask is, how can a company exist if it just wants to make people happy? It won't make a profit. It won't be successful. How can it even exist? Look, of course, we wanted to create a profitable company that made money. No one would be happy. None of our staff would be happy if we couldn't pay them. And our clients wouldn't be happy if we went bankrupt. The point is that we thought that team and client happiness was the right thing to do, right? It was more important than increasing our profits. So we believed that if we prioritized happiness, if that was our goal, then traditional success, revenue, profit, growth, etc., would naturally follow. Now, 10 years on, right, it turns out that we were right. Okay, floaty me. So whilst we wanted our team to be happy because we thought it was the right thing to do, it turns out that it's a pretty good business decision to do, right? There are loads and loads of studies now that show that happy teams perform better than unhappy teams. They're more productive, they collaborate better, they innovate better. One study even shows that their share performance is better, okay? But with all my research, and I've done a lot of it, the most interesting fact that I've found is the factors that make people happy at work are the same factors that make them perform better, right? So if you focus on making your employees happy at work, you will naturally build better companies where people stay longer, people where they innovate more, where they collaborate more, where they work better in a team. Right, back to our story. So we wanted to create this happy company. The problem was we had no idea how to do it, right? We thought we did, but looking back now, we didn't have any idea, right? So we tried everything. First, we got a great office. We even put a hammock on the roof, okay? We got a dartboard in the office so we could play darts. We had raucous barbecues. We gave away free beer on every Thursday. It was actually in our staff contract that we would give them free beer every Thursdays. And then we had free lunches, we had buffet breakfast every week. Basically, if we saw something that a company in San Francisco did and we could afford it, we copied it. But many of the things we did, they brought fleeting success, but they didn't really make that substantial progress to our team's happiness that we wanted. We learned little lessons along the way, but we didn't really understand the ones that worked and the ones that didn't. And looking back now, I think there were 3 light bulb moments, okay? 3 moments which defined who we are and what we do as a company. And 3 moments where we started to understand what happiness actually means and how we could use it to build a better company. And I believe that any company who wishes to prioritize happiness needs to follow a similar journey to us. Right, the first light bulb moment, right, was when we realized we needed to believe in what we were saying, okay? In about 2018, I was in a management meeting with Rachel, that's Rachel on the left there, and she was our COO at the time, and Ted, our CTO, and me. And we were discussing our client. It was our most profitable client. They had our highest revenue. The problem was they made our team miserable. Okay? And we tried for the last 6 months trying to make it work. But nothing we would do was working. And so this meeting, we were discussing new techniques that we could try. And then Ray said, right, I think we need to finish with this client. Okay, they're not making us happy. Because if you believe that team happiness is the most important thing, we need to finish this client because we cannot make them happy. It's just not going to work. They're not a good fit. And then she said, if we don't finish with this client, right, you have to stop saying that team happiness is the most important thing because it clearly isn't. Yeah, I was dumbstruck. It was a right punch in the chest. But she was totally right. Okay, she was totally right. I realized that I'd been saying that our team's happiness was most important thing. We had it on our website. We'd been doing starting initiatives, writing policies, and all that. But in the back of our heads, it was still profit. It was still revenue. And at that moment, I realized that if we truly believed that we couldn't be successful unless we were happy, we needed to prioritize it. And now happiness is a KPI in our company. We measure it. We act on it. We shout it out. We tell everyone, this is what we do. And before we make any decision at all, we ask ourselves, will it make our team happy? If we take this client, will it make them happier? So the first step to making a happy company is to truly believe it's important, right? Okay. Make it a KPI. Make happiness a KPI. The second step is you need to measure it. Okay, so later that year, later in 2018, we were struggling a bit with projects. Okay, we didn't seem to be getting it quite right. They'd sometimes be late. They'd sometimes be a bit of miscommunication. They were okay. We were doing fine, but they were below what our high standards, and we knew we could do better. And then one of our team, Inma, this is Inma here. She was our first ever employee number 1 at Secret Sauce. She came up with an idea called Project Health, and basically each week she spoke to all of our teams and she spoke to all of our clients, and she marked them. Is the project on time? Is it on budget? How are the team feeling? How's the client happy? And then she wrote it all on a big whiteboard. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo of it, but this is more or less what it looked like. It was brilliant. It was such a good idea. Now, any moment we could just walk over to the whiteboard and see how any project was going and how the team felt about it. But the real deal breaker, the real change in the company was the team and the client happiness scores. We can now see how happy everybody was. And about the same time, right, we introduced one-to-ones with our team. It was another initiative that we'd heard about from a podcast we'd listened to, and we were experimenting with it. And it was the combination of these two things, of the one-to-ones and measuring happiness, that was our second light bulb moment. Right. Before we measured happiness, our one-to-ones were very functional, right? They would, how's it going? Anything that we can do to help, any blockers, things like that. Okay. And then maybe some small talk at the end. But after our managers started knowing how our teams were feeling, right, it started conversations about their well-being that would never happen before. Right. It was incredible. It didn't happen instantly. It happened over about 7 months, but the change was significant. So basically, we measure team our happiness on a 1 to 5 scale: red, orange, green, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But using colors or numbers, what we found is the key, right? By using colors or numbers, basically it allows people to tell you how they're feeling. It allows people to say negative things without having to say anything negative, right? It's a lot easier to say this project is making me feel orange, or this project is about a 3. It's a lot easier. You feel a lot safer saying that than my manager's being a pain, or I don't enjoy this project, or these tasks, they're stupid. It's a lot easier to say a number or a color. And you know what, even spawned a new language for a while in the company. People used to say, right, this project's making me feel orange. If I do this task, I'm going to be red. Okay. So by removing that judgmental language, I'm not feeling good, I'm not enjoying myself, people gave more honest answers. And so now every week we can see how our team is feeling. Now, over the years, we've tried other methods. We did truth questionnaires, anonymous surveys, and stuff like that, more complex rating system. But we've always come back to this simple score, 1 to 5 score. It used to be 3, now it's 5. So step 2, measure happiness. And the third light bulb moment was when I discovered something called psychological safety, and then this world called the science of happiness, right? I remember about 5 years ago, I was on a call with a client. This isn't the screenshot. I couldn't find it. This is us during COVID, but anyway, it fills the gap. I was on this call with a client, with one of our developers. And this client was very much this is what I want you to do. You do it. Okay. Didn't really believe in collaboration. He thought he knew better. Anyway, the previous night he'd had an idea. And he was really enthusiastic about it. He'd thought about it. He'd drawn out some sketches. And he asked us to build it. Now, when we came off the call, the developer turned to me and said, that is the worst idea I've ever heard, right? One, it won't work because of X, Y, Z. And two, nobody will ever use it because it's so complicated. And I asked the developers, why didn't you say this on the call? And he said, look, I didn't want to appear negative. He said that every time he'd suggested an idea in the past or disagreed, he'd always been shouted down and told he needed to be more positive. He then said to me, did I think it was a good idea? And I said, no, it was a terrible idea. And he said, well, why didn't you say anything? And I thought, oh, right, yeah. And I, the same, I didn't want any conflict. And this continued for 6 months. He gave an idea, we disagreed, but we didn't say anything. In the end, we launched the product, and 3 months later, the product, they closed it down because it had no users. Right, you might ask, why didn't we say anything? Why didn't we stand up for ourselves? Well, we did, right? For this first 6 months, for the first few months, we did. But after a while, we didn't feel safe saying anything. We didn't like just being told we were negative, or we didn't like being told we were wrong. Like during this project, we didn't get out in bed in the morning thinking, I want to build a product that won't work, right? We didn't think that. But also we didn't get out of bed in the morning thinking, I want to be told I'm being negative. I want to be shouted at. So subconsciously, for our own mental health, we just avoided conflict. Why is this story important? Okay, because after this experience, I started researching how we could improve team performance, how we could improve collaboration with our clients. And that's when I discovered this magical thing called psychological safety. And what I believe is the most important factor in happiness at work. Okay, I personally believe that you cannot be truly happy at work unless you have psychological safety, right? It was a light bulb moment for me. It explained why all the work we'd done in the past on friendships and making everyone feel comfortable was so important. If you don't know what psychological safety is, I'll explain it really quickly. If you're in a group situation, right, you feel safe to ask questions and you feel safe to make suggestions. You feel safe to challenge others, right? All without fear of somebody criticizing you or saying anything negative. Okay. Why is this important? Well, Google, about 10 years ago, maybe a bit more, Google wanted to know what were the characteristics of their highest performing teams. And so they did this big study, 2 years. They looked at 37,000 employees, and they found that the most important trait of their highest performing teams was psychological safety. Right, so it's key to performance, and I believe that a team cannot be happy without psychological safety. And after we discovered this, and we started understanding why our teams work better, it opened up this whole new world to us. Basically, before we knew what worked, right? What we needed to do to make our teams happy. Yeah, we needed to have team events. We needed to go out together and stuff like that. We even knew how to do it, but we'd be missing the why. We didn't know why some of our initiatives worked. Okay. And discovering that there's an actual science behind this and team performance just opened our eyes. And so we've spent the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, working out how we can use this science of happiness to make real change to our workplace. So those are the light bulb moments. Okay. Firstly, you need buy-in from the very top. Okay. Then you need to measure it, and then you need to take positive affirmative action. So back to our story. So we decided that happiness was important, right? We were measuring it. We knew about this whole world. Okay. The problem that we encountered, though, was that what people think will make them happy is not necessarily what does. So this is a study from Oxford University from this year. Okay. They published, I think it's one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, study into employee well-being. It was published this year. And this is what people think will make them happy at work. So the most important thing that people think it's their salary, their compensation. They think if they have a good salary, they're going to be happy, followed by flexibility, appreciation, purpose, etc. As you can guess, right, what actually makes people happy is slightly different. Right, I'm going to show you the results a bit later, so you have to stay until the end of the presentation. But here's a little spoiler. Salary, compensation, is not the top driver of happiness. It's not even the second or third or fourth or fifth either. Now, there are many facets to people's happiness in the work, right? In the workplace. But today I'm going to focus on 5 categories. And these 5 categories are taken from the US Surgeon General's guidelines on well-being. Okay. The first is you need to make your need to make your team feel safe. Okay. So that means they need to feel safe that they're going to get paid. They need to feel safe that their job is secure, and importantly, that they feel psychologically safe. And the second thing you need to do is your team they need to feel that they belong to a team, okay, and that they feel supported. When I was little, on the right there, okay, my parents owned an engineering company, and I used to love going around to this company. People there were so welcoming. It felt like a family to me. The staff used to stay there for years and years and years. There's one guy that was there throughout my whole primary school, right until I went to university. And when we started Secret Source, right from the start, we've always dedicated a huge amount of time to make people welcome, safe, and supported, because I wanted to have a company like my parents. I thought it was a kind of special place. And I remember about 5 years ago, after our Christmas meal, this is a photo from that night. Okay, we all went out for drinks and everyone decided to play drinking games and play darts in this bar. And I was sat at the bar watching them, and this guy came up, this total random guy came up, and he said to me, "Are you in that company?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You are so lucky." He said, "That is the closest bunch of people I've ever seen." He then tripped over and poured his beer down my front. But the moment before that was kind of special to me. And it turns out that feeling part of a team and feeling supported at work is absolutely critical to feeling happy in the workplace. And this is supported by Oxford University's research, right? The feeling of belonging is actually the most important factor driving well-being at work. The third thing we discovered, and again, this was fortuitously, we didn't mean to discover it, was the importance of knowing that you have opportunities for growth, right? We discovered the importance of this on the 6th of November, 2017, right? I know this date because it was the day we sent out a survey to all our team. And this survey asked questions like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you at work? And what 3 words you use to describe our culture? But it finished off with this question. Do you foresee yourself working here 1 year from now? Overall, the results from the survey were positive. Our team were happy. But many people answered no or maybe to question 15. Right. This is obviously a massive problem. We didn't want half of our team to leave within the next year. So we talked to everyone individually and the same theme came up, right? I don't know how I can get a promotion. I don't know how I can improve. There are no senior positions here. What do I need to do to get paid more? So on and so on. So being happy at work, doing fun things at work, feeling great in the team is just not enough. People need to feel that there are opportunities for growth as well. Now, we've solved it by creating what's possibly the greatest career development program in the world. Thank you, Ted. He's our CTO. He's done an amazing job. It's 6 years old now. And it's such an integral part of our culture that a couple of weeks ago, we had a team building day, and Charlotte, our wonderful designer, the logo this year was basically life at Secret Source. So this logo here, it's got a palm tree on the left because we're in the Canary Islands. Glasses, because for some reason, everyone in the company wears glasses for Zoom calls. But right here is our developer professional ladder. So the third factor for a happy workforce is you've got to provide opportunities for growth. The fourth factor is you have to give work a purpose, right? In our early days, right, we really struggled building perfect products. There was always sort of a mismatch in expectations between us and our clients. And we tried to solve it: longer meetings, shorter meetings, more documentation, more requirements, etc. But nothing really worked. And then in about 2019, right, I met a friend. He runs a big IT company in the States that works for Disney and Harvard and stuff like that. And he said to me, what worked really well for them was something called a definition of success, right? And this is a phrase or a paragraph or a statement from the client or the project owner, which tells you what success looks like to them. And so really what's important to them. It's a way we could understand why they were doing this project, why they were why they were doing this sort of module for their product. So, for example, it wouldn't be like, I need these requirements by this date for this price. No, those are the requirements. That's not a definition of success. The definition of success might be, success for me is being able to stand on a stage on July the 7th and present this app to 1,000 investors. Or it might be, success for me is on May the 31st that we launch this to 100 beta testers in our company, so they can test this hypothesis. Okay. And for our teams that were struggling to connect with our clients, it was a transformation. It really helped us understand why they wanted to do this work. Now, I'm a big fan of the concept of start with why, and I've followed the principle for years and years. But it turns out that to feel happy at work, people need to feel that their work has meaning, right? It has to have a purpose beyond completing a to-do list. And finally, the last step, people need to have a good work-life balance. They need flexibility. Now, one of the main lessons that I've learned since being an employee and having the privilege of being an employer too, is that everybody is different, right? I know this sounds blindingly obvious, right? Obviously, everybody's different, yeah. But I don't think it's something that companies always remember, okay? For us, right, we always thought that we were flexible and adapted to everyone as individuals, but it wasn't until COVID that we actually really understood the importance of recognizing that everyone's different and respecting everyone's differences, right? Everyone's got different life circumstances. Everyone's got different needs. So when lockdown finished, we were debating, what should we do? Should we come back to the office? Should we continue working from home? So we sent out a survey, 40 questions, 40 surveys, and basically 40 different answers, right? Some wanted to stay at home, some wanted to come to the office, some wanted a bit of a mixture, right? And so we didn't know what to do. In the end, we just abandoned our work from home policy, and just said, people, you can do what you want. Do what suits you the best. So, oops, that's a picture. There we are. So right now we've got some people who work in the office. This is Benji here, who works from his van. Juan, who works from home in Madrid. So the final step to creating a happy workplace is you've got to give your team a good work-life balance, right? And this means like adapting your policies. So not so that they work around what's easiest for the company, but what works for everyone, right? If you don't need everyone to start work at 9 a.m., don't force it, right? Let Colin from accounts take his son to school and start work at 9:30 if that will make him happy. Now, there are obviously many, many other factors that will affect your happiness, team performance. I haven't mentioned diversity, the importance of inclusion. I haven't mentioned you need to have a positive outlook. These are really important as well. Fun is key. You need to feel you're trusted, you have ownership of your work, and you need to feel appreciated. All of those are just as important, but I've only got 30 minutes today. So these 5 categories are a good start. Anyway, let's go back to the Oxford study, right? So what does actually make you happy at work? Well, according to this study, and this was work they did with Indeed, the hiring platform, belonging, feeling part of a team is the most important. Then flexibility, feeling that you're included, part of a team as well, having purpose, feeling that you're supported, and then compensation, right? Your salary. This is an interesting one because people think that salary is the most important thing that drives their happiness. But actually, it's here down in number 6. So there are lots of other factors that are actually more important. So paying your staff a massive salary will help them stay, probably because they'll get trapped, but it won't make them happy. It won't address other issues if you don't focus on these. Consequently, if you don't pay fairly, that will also affect their happiness. Okay, because they think that it's important. So here's my 3-step plan. Right. Get buy-in from the top of the company. Make happiness a KPI. Start measuring it so that you can see what initiatives you try actually work. And also it gives you a real opportunity to listen to the rest of your team. And thirdly, take positive action. Do all the fun stuff, right? There's lots of things you can do to build happiness. And just to finalize, I believe that every company should have a happiness KPI, right? Not because it improves performance or reduces staff turnover, but because it is the right thing to do, right? However, I am realistic, right? We live in a society where profits and revenue and shareholders, they're the most important thing. So if you can't persuade your boss or your manager that well-being is important just in itself, remind them of this, right? The factors that make people happy at work are the same factors that make them perform better, right? If you focus on improving the factors that make your employees happy at work, performance will improve, and consequently, so will your company. And that's it. Thank you very much. Back to Sarah.
Oh, thank you. I'm just going to share the links to our LinkedIn, also to Richard's LinkedIn in the chat. I'm also going to put my email address. If any of you have any questions, if there's anything here that you want to talk about, feel free to get in touch with us. Feel free to send me an email. And now we're going to head over and just answer some of the questions that you guys have put forward. If you still want to ask a question, I'll post again the link to the Slido. Right, where to start? I think we should start with a really important question that was asked near the beginning, Richard, which was you said that the Porsche 911 was the car to have. What's the car to have now?
Well, that's a good question. Who knows? Eh?
Right. There's a few questions that are sort of related about the one of the comments says, I really like the idea of asking for a number or a color. Like, how do you do this, or what's the easiest way to do this? A couple of people have asked about what tools we use, I guess, and also how we check it. One of the questions was, well, if someone's red, how do you know, and what do you do? So a few questions around the same topic there. You can answer.
Okay, so there are a few tools that do this. We use an employee engagement tool called 15.5, but another one I like is something called Friday Pulse, which measures the happiness of your teams. And basically they just have what I showed you before, a little check-in once a week, and they mark it, and then the admin or the manager gets to see how that person is. But the key thing here is that you don't just look at it and say, oh, they're unhappy this week. It should open up a question. That's the real value of it. So if someone's feeling orange, if they're feeling 3 out of 5, you open it. You go in your one-to-one, you're saying, you're 3 this week. Tell me a bit more about it. That's the key thing. But there are plenty of tools out there. We used to use like a Google Sheet for years with and that worked fine. But Friday Pulse is a good one, 15.5, and there are a couple of others as well.
Cool. Okay. One of the questions was asking, I know you touched on it slightly, but about how you work out if people are feeling red. Yeah. What do you do? How do you work it out? How do you address the issues? Is there anything more than just saying, oh, I noticed you were red? You know, what else do we do to tackle people who are unhappy?
Well, it's a conversation, isn't it? I think that's the key thing. You find out why people are red for different reasons. It might be because they're not feeling safe in their job. They might feel the project doesn't have a future. It might be that they're just not enjoying their work. It might be something outside work. Everybody's different, but the key thing here is just opens up a question. So if someone's red, just talk to them about it and listen. Listening, I think, is a skill that people think they have, but not many do. So yeah, do that. And one of the things that we do is if if someone's red or orange and it's caused by something outside of our control, and if, for example, a client, and it's happened a few times, we have a policy that if a member of staff is orange for 2 weeks in a row because of the client, we will tell the client and we'll say, they're orange because of this. We need you to work with us to help fix it. And our clients are usually really open to this. So just talk about it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Richard. There's a couple of questions again on a similar theme. How has this really helped your business? So, you know, talking about all of these different things we can do to make people feel psychological safe and happy. How does this actually translate into business results for us?
Okay, so the noticeable changes are, well, firstly, collaboration, right? Once people felt safe, both within their teams in the company and with our client, collaboration just went through the roof. Okay, it improved so much. People just worked better as a team, and just the results got a lot better. We're far more aligned with our clients. Okay, that's one thing. Secondly, turnover of staff, retention improved, and we saw a lower staff turnover once we started measuring happiness. And it's not something we've measured, but innovation. Apparently, when teams feel happy, innovation actually gets better. I assume because they feel safer to make suggestions. They won't be criticized for them. They won't be shouted down. So innovation will improve as well in the company.
Brilliant. Thanks, Richard. Another question saying, I'd really like to do this, but not sure I'm going to get buy-in from the FD or whoever. Any feedback, any points on how you can take the rest of the management team along this journey with you?
Well, okay, so I get asked this one a lot. When I do presentations to sort of IT CTOs and stuff like that, they say, I'd love to do this, but financial department just won't invest in it. I think going back to my plan before, you show them that it's the right thing to do. But anyway, but happier teams just will improve. This study by Oxford University by Jan Emmanuel Nev, I think, actually showed that share performance, or you just look it up, it's a really interesting study. The share performance of companies with happier teams is actually better than teams that aren't happy, right? So it will affect share performance. It also affects staff retention and things like that as well. It will have noticeable, tangible effects on your business.
Cool. Another question we had, I think we only got a couple more. How or does diversity affect happiness? Any thoughts on that? Wow. Is it a one recipe for all, or?
That's a really true one. Okay, so diversity is obviously an amazing thing, right? The more diversity you have in your company, the better it will do. 100 white men, middle-aged men in a room, and you'll get one idea. Put 100 different people, and you'll get 100 different ideas. But one of the tricky things with diversity is that it's psychological safety. If companies really diverse, it's more difficult for people to feel safe and included, right? You can do it, but it just takes a bit more effort. Okay, so if you have a diverse company, you just have to be you have to take more positive actions to make sure that your team feel safe. Okay, everybody feels safe. The holy grail is a safe, diverse team. Okay, but you have to put a little bit more effort into making a diverse team feel safe. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Right, last one, which I think is a really nice question to finish on.
Yeah.
Richard, how do you know your team feels safe?
Good one. Right. Okay. So there are a few things that you can see. So if you have a team of 5 people, right, and one person isn't contributing, right, they probably don't feel safe. If they're not asking questions, they probably don't feel safe. 1 or 2 people are dominating the conversations. The rest of the team probably don't feel safe. Now, there's lots of things you can do to help them feel safer. When a new person joins a team, they might not want to speak out, but they might be happier writing it down. So you can start with that. They might even be happier writing questions or suggestions anonymously. Okay, so you can start with that. And you can slowly build up someone's feeling of safety in a team by doing that. But generally, if someone's not contributing, if someone's not asking questions, and one or two people are dominating, that means that the rest of the team probably don't feel safe. There we go.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank
Cool.
you, Richard. Awesome. That's all of our questions. So thank you everyone for joining. Really, really lovely to see you all today. As mentioned already, if you want to speak to me, if you want to speak to Richard, our contact details are in the chat. I'll hang around for another couple of minutes just in case anyone wants to chat about anything offline. The recording will be posted on LinkedIn in the next few days. So have a good rest of the day, everyone. Thanks again, and I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, both of
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Thank you.